Okie dokie. And if tradition is any marker, that will ring. Had to who?
Work in Spokane today.
Is that good or that's normal, isn't it?
I got home 15 minutes ago.
I didn't get home too early myself. At about 4, we had another sewer incident. Yes, indeed. So, that'll make tomorrow a fun day for, well, the people who want to bill us, I guess. All part of the game. Hmm?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Shank informed me that he was stuck up at work, so.
So don't worry about
He
him.
said he would be trying to call in or something.
Okay.
Well, my phone will probably be the one that rings when that moment comes.
Okay. We're ready.
We're live.
Well, I'm not gonna wait. We'll wait a
Everyone
couple.
else was looking at their arm. I thought I should as well.
And what did you see?
Hair?
Anything new?
Not that I could tell.
Okay. We'll give them here about 2 more minutes. Well, it's 6:35. I think we'll call this meeting to order. March 23rd, 2022. And we'll start off by calling the roll call. Council position 1, Joe Armand.
I am here.
You are present. Position number 2, David Budrius.
Present.
Present. Position 3, Stephen.
Here.
Here. Position 4 is Peter.
Present.
Peter is present. No phone call yet?
Not yet.
Okay. And Jerry is here. So we'll take a minute here and recognize anybody in the audience who would like to have their name put on the list.
Stan Roth.
Stan Roth.
I'm Dave Neuenschwander.
Can you spell that for me, Dave?
Yeah, it's Neuenschwander.
Okay, thank you. And Tim?
Tim Campau. C-A-M-P-A-U.
How do you spell Tim?
And Kelly Foreman.
Correct, Kelly Foreman.
Thank you, Kelly.
Around here.
These guys don't watch the old Muppets up in the top of the theater.
There's too many of them.
Any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight?
I just have one
Okay,
concerning the mandatory training associated with the council.
okay.
It'll be a brief, no biggie.
How did I know you'd have a problem with that?
Oh, it's not a problem. It's going to be a compliment.
Oh, okay.
Is there an intent towards executive session? I don't see it on the agenda now.
No, there's not
Okay.
at the moment.
There's not a need,
Okay,
just something if we were gonna have it that I was gonna bring up.
so first thing on our list tonight is we're going to conduct an interview with Kelly here. Kelly is put in a letter of intent for the treasurer's position. That's going to be vacant soon. So at this time, I'll turn the floor over to the council for them to ask any questions they wish of Kelly.
I have a question.
Floor is yours,
I'm
Peter.
Peter Davenport, Kelly. Thank you very much for applying. We're delighted to have qualified candidates apply for the position. Could you summarize for us, please, your formal training in bookkeeping or accounting or any related subject, please?
Okay, I don't have like an accounting degree, anything like that. I have worked for the last 17 years for a company that manages expenses for other businesses. So I have been doing balance sheets and audits and things for most of that time. But I don't like have an accounting degree.
How many companies have you worked for in that time? Just one or?
It's one company, but we manage expenses for other companies. So, for example, like all the McDonald's in the world, some are corporate, some are franchise, but it's always McDonald's that would look bad if their lights got shut off. It's not like Joe, the franchisee, that would look bad if the lights. All their utility expenses come to my company. We manage, audit, make sure they're not being overbilled, make sure they're not being charged late fees that they're not supposed to be, and consolidate the files, present them to the corporate office. They fund us the money and we pay the bills for them. It's was an offshoot of Avista 21 years ago, and it is now a whole separate company.
Thank you.
I hadn't thought, I've spoken to Kelly before, just in passing, so, I had a thought on the way here that I wanted to ask, and I'll be danged if I can remember it right at this exact moment. I'll open the floor to anybody else.
So what brought your interest in serving as the treasurer, Harrington?
Actually, Joe mentioned it to me, and I have always, when I lived in Spokane, worked at least one second job just for things to do in the afternoon and evening. And I moved out here in May, and I'm just looking for a way to keep busy and be involved in the community.
Okay. Have you held an elected position before?
I have not.
Have you had some discussions with Mr. Cronrath regarding, no, okay.
I was gonna say, I don't know who Cronrath is. You have to.
I'm not here.
I was like, I don't know that name. So that's going to be a no.
Mike's our current treasurer.
Okay.
Was for the past 2 years, Mike? 3 years?
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever it was, a long time. And I apologize now for not asking you if you were here, so you've been officially signed in for
Thank you
attendance.
for signing me in.
What's that?
Not me.
Somebody's ringing.
I don't even have.
Are you there?
We are.
Okay.
Needs to mute his.
So I'm assuming that with your current role, you're used to producing reports and what have you on a
Yes.
regular basis, and have you followed the
Levi,
frequency
can we get
of
you to
the,
mute till you're ready to speak?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Seeing the council meeting frequency, does that present a problem being here at least once a month?
No,
Okay.
I work from home, I am here pretty much every day. So,
Cool. That's all I have.
I'm good.
How familiar are you with computer systems?
that's what I do all
Okay.
day long.
We have a program called BIAS that everything gets entered into.
Right.
You've heard of that?
I have heard of it, I have not used it.
Okay.
But I have not yet met a computer program that I'm afraid to try, so.
That's good.
That's wonderful.
Another question, if I may, please.
Sure.
Have you ever worked in a position that had you reporting government data to a government
Yes.
body,
Actually,
or is it always in the private sector?
well, the company that I work for currently manages utility expenses for a couple different government organizations, both local, state, and federal.
When you think about this position, what kind of a time frame of involvement comes to your mind? Is this something where you'd like to be the treasurer for one term, several terms?
Because it's something I've never done before, I don't think I could give an exact answer for that, but I could see it being something I would be interested in longer term.
That means running for office.
I understand that part.
Mike, anything that you can think of that you'd like to run past Kelly?
Forgive me for standing in here behind you, Kelly. What is the name of this company that you work for, just out of curiosity?
It is NG Impact. It used to be Avista Advantage when it was still an offshoot of Avista, and then it was Ecova, and then it was NG Insight, and now it is NG Impact. And they don't believe in consistency in the name. I tried to tell people, Campbell Soup never changes their name. Everybody recognizes it. You pick one and stay with it, but they don't do that. Currently, it's actually a subsidiary of the French NG, their natural gas company in France. We got sold internationally.
And you said you live here in Harrington?
I do, the Grey Victorian down across from the Nazarene Church.
Okay, all right. Now, see, you gotta get used to naming all these houses by who's lived in them 20 years ago.
I don't know those people though.
You will.
I have the paperwork from when it was built, and it was the Morgan House, I think, because I have pictures
There
and
you go,
stuff
now
for
we
it.
You know, listening to what you're saying as far as your experiences and stuff, my questions are pretty well answered as far as your experience with technology and with programs like BIAS and so forth.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the council's pretty much covered what I wanted to cover, and so I really don't think I have anything extra. So I'll turn it back over to council. I don't have much that I can offer them at this point.
Anybody else?
I'm
You're good?
I'm good. David is
I have a
good.
question. You mentioned you've done balance sheets for companies.
Mhm.
Do you do income statements as well?
I have not. I'm sure I could, but I haven't, because we don't manage the company's actual incomes, we more manage their expenses. So I haven't done that end of
I
things.
see. Thank you.
You ever had this, I know you've mentioned, so I'm gonna jump back in here, council, I apologize. Have you ever dealt with the state as far as a state audit, or had to submit any kind of, we've got our annual report coming up that we have to do every year that's coming up, and have you ever done anything like that? Does that sound familiar at all?
No, I know that we as a company do them, but that has never been my particular role. So I have not done one of
I've done two, and they're different every time.
those. Of course they are, because they're for the government.
Exactly.
Well, if there's no further questions, we'll say thank you for coming
All right,
and interviewing, and we will be in contact with you.
that is fabulous.
And you're more welcome to stay in and,
I'm gonna stay.
okay,
the meeting.
very good. As a town person now, this might become one of your,
But see, my problem is I see about these meetings on Facebook normally the day after they happen, so like the announcements don't always show up on my feed before the meetings, so.
Oh, okay.
okay? Well, we'll talk to our,
You can't control the way that Facebook presents things, and that's where the issue is.
no, I don't have any control over
But
Facebook.
I could publish the yearly schedule all at one time, so if I can get these guys to agree on it.
Do you have another question?
No, that was guffaw.
Okay, let's move on. The next thing on the agenda is to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 9th. Here's the minutes. Is that this?
Some looking. I don't think that's me.
I will fix that problem right now.
I don't even have the minutes. What rules
Here,
is-
David.
Okay, thanks.
There's an email that was sent out when Jerry put out the packet.
There was one correction in the name typo, but I believe that's been corrected already.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Call the question?
Did you find it, Peter?
Yep.
You got it?
Good try, Levi.
I'm good.
All right, it's been moved by Stephen and seconded by Joe that we approve the minutes from the March 9th meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you, council. The next issue on the agenda, Peter, I don't know if you need something to read or if you got one. I'm going to call Jen Dial, who is one of the senior members of Commerce, and she's going to give us a brief interlude here on what the three possibilities are for us to move forward with the CAO, which is a necessary piece for us to complete our Growth Management Act and receive our grant. So I'll give her a buzz right now and we'll get her online.
And to be clear, this is in reference to the PDF that Jerry sent out yesterday, the critical area ordinance.
It is involved with that. And I sent out one here a week ago, and I think you commented on that.
Yeah, in regards to the vote, yeah.
Yes. Give me just a second here.
Hello, this is Jen.
Good evening, Jen. This is Jess at City Hall here in Harrington. I'd like to introduce you to the council and the rest of the group. This is Jen Dials. She is one of the head people at Washington State Department of Commerce, and she'd like to speak to us here for a couple minutes and briefly give us her position on the ways that we could easily get through getting our CAO or get that through so we can get our Growth Management Act in effect. Thank you, Jen. You have the floor.
All right, thank you, Mayor Silhan. Yeah, so everyone, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, just fine.
Okay,
Yep, got it.
all right, good. As the mayor said, my name is Jen Dial. I'm a planner with the Department of Commerce in the Growth Management Services Department. That's all to say that my sole job is providing assistance to jurisdictions trying to meet the requirements of the Growth Management Act. I'm assigned to Lincoln County, Stevens County, Ferry, and Pend Oreille. So I'm happy to be able to meet with you guys tonight and try to help you guys get what you need so you can get into a good position to be eligible for your CDBG and ecology grants. So I wanted to just start with, if you have a minute, for me just to describe what is the Growth Management Act, what are these requirements, what is this document we're referring to, just so everybody can kind of understand the importance of this and the significance of it. So going back into the 1990s, the Washington State Legislature passed the Growth Management Act primarily as a response to kind of the growing population and urban sprawl that was starting to eat up a lot of our natural resource lands, our ag land, our forest land. So they required counties and cities to essentially start planning for 20 years out into the future to ensure that they're accommodating for the growth in population that they'll experience, and that they're doing that in a confined way within an urban growth area. Now, we have 39 counties in Washington. Of those 39 counties, some are what we refer to as fully planning, and some are partially planning. Essentially, what that means under the Growth Management Act, if you're a fully planning county, you're probably more populated, you probably have more urban centers, and you're required to do more planning than the partially planning counties. You guys are in Lincoln County. Lincoln is a partially planning county. And what that means is you do not have to do the full comprehensive plan, planning out 20 years into the future for your transportation, your housing, your land use, all those things. You can voluntarily, but you're not required to by the state. What you are required to do is to at least plan for and consider what the state refers to as environmentally sensitive areas or critical areas. And those are things like landslide areas, wetlands, areas that really are not safe to put housing or other types of facilities. And they want to make sure that all jurisdictions are mapping those, are aware of where they are, and are preventing development from occurring in those places, because it's just not safe. So that is the requirement that's before the town of Harrington. The last time Harrington went through this exercise was in 1993, I believe, according to our records. So the state, under the Growth Management Act, you are required every 8 years to update these critical area regulations. So, as you guys know, 1993 was more than 8 years ago. So that's what's hanging you up from being what they call in compliance with the Growth Management Act. And it's that being out of compliance that's keeping you from being eligible for the ecology grant. So I hope that kind of explains what this is all about. What I really wanted to bring forward to council tonight was how we fix this situation. And I was talking to the mayor, and we have what I would say are probably 3 options. I wanted to present all 3 of those to you tonight so you guys can make a decision. But I do think of the 3, one is probably my recommendation, or what I would consider preferred. So I'll just go through those, and then after I explain the 3, you guys can ask me questions and we can walk through it. So the critical area ordinance from 1993 is very out of date. So the first option would be we take that kind of foundation from 1993 and we try to update it. It would take some considerable staff time, a fair amount of, it's fairly technical. So it takes some expertise kind of in natural sciences. So I just want to be open about that, kind of what's involved with it. Option 2 is we use the county, Lincoln County's critical area ordinance, and you adopt it by reference. It's my understanding that the county already processes the town's building permits. And when the county does that, they have to refer to the critical area ordinance to make sure they're not, allowing a house to go in a wetland, for example. So if you're using their code by reference, it makes the process for the county pretty easy in issuing a building permit, because they're already familiar with that code, because it's their code to begin with. And it's pretty minimal work for the town. All we have to do is draft an ordinance, essentially adopting the county's critical area ordinance by reference. So it can be pretty straightforward. The third option is we take the county's critical area ordinance and we modify it to make it a local Harrington specific version. That's less involved than modifying the 1993 version, but it would still be some work. And I can help on all these things, but it would still take some work from somebody at the town to kind of help guide all that through. So of the 3 options, I would say my recommendation would probably be to adopt the counties by reference, particularly because if we had a lot of time, maybe we want to draft a fresh one for the town, and then you're set for the next 8 years, and 8 years down the road, you have a really good foundation to build off of that's specific to Harrington. But we don't have a lot of time because your ecology grant is kind of hinging on this, and I think they want all this to get done by the end of June. And the way this process works is once the critical area ordinance is drafted, the council approves it at a meeting, the draft, and then we upload it into the state's system where all the state agencies that have authority to review it have 60 days to review it. So we have a 60-day clock that we can't get around. It's a state requirement. So working back from June 30, 60 days, you know, we've got some time to put together a draft, like maybe 6 weeks or so, but we don't have a lot of time. So those are kind of the pros and cons, I would say, of the various options that I'm aware of. It's totally up to you what you decide to do, and I'm here to help you with whatever you choose. So with that, I hope I didn't flood you with too much information, but I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
I have one for you, Jen. This is Jess. You mentioned to me that through your office, you had the ability to file for an expedited read of that motion if we were to pass that?
Yes, so we have the 60-day clock, which is the kind of standard timing for it. In pressing circumstances, in very unique circumstances, you can ask for an expedited review, which can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 59 days. Anything shy of 60 days is considered expedited. I don't have approval authority over it. The other state agencies that are responsible for reviewing it have to agree to it. So they could say yes, they could say no. We could try. It is an option we could explore, but I think if we get something submitted soon, even with the 60 days, you will be under the deadline that ecology has.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
I got a question for you, Jen. My name's David Budrius,
Okay.
Councilman 2. How much money's involved with, will it cost the city if we were to choose something like option 3?
Option 3 probably won't cost you much because I can help you with a lot of that. It's going to take maybe some of Mayor Silhan's time or Jerry's time or a council member who wants to work with me. I would say there's a few hours of work involved for somebody to work with me on that.
Well,
but no other cost.
just hypothetically, I mean, you said a 1993 ordinance, and as I gather from all the correspondence, I hear the term thrown out, updating the current ordinance, and taking that into account, and the city of Harrington, really, in actuality, nothing has changed since 93 in this town. And anything that was deemed critical, in my opinion, is going to probably stay that way. So I'm trying to wrap myself around this, what's all involved if we can just basically plug the years in different, because the footprint of Harrington hasn't changed. And to my knowledge, there's no new construction planned or anything on the books of that nature. So I was just trying to speed this up and hopefully it wouldn't get into hiring a bunch of team of engineers and this and that and everything else to go whip a dead horse again. I mean, nothing's changed in this town. So that's just where I was going with that.
No, it's a really good question. I appreciate you bringing that up. I hear this a lot from small towns. Like, okay, we're beholden to this state law that's meant for fast-growing, populated areas, and things aren't changing here. So it's a totally valid point. The thing that has changed since '93 are the laws. So the 1993 version it's in alignment with what the laws were at that time, but a lot of the laws have changed around wetlands, around the various critical areas, and how they're defined, how far, like, let's say, for example, you have to have a buffer from a stream.
Correct.
All of those rules have changed. So it's not that Harrington has changed, it's that Harrington's code would need to be updated to reflect all the new laws.
Okay.
So a lot of towns, if they have the budget for it, they hire a consultant to write this critical area ordinance. It can cost anywhere from, on a really slim budget, $2,500 to, over 5,000 or more. So I hope that helps.
All right.
The 1993 version that I looked at, to be honest with you, it wasn't really thorough to begin with. It was missing some information. Like, if we tried to just modify a few things, it probably wouldn't pass through this time around. It was missing some key information to begin with.
I see.
So it needs a fairly decent overhaul.
Right. Well, I appreciate that's. Thank you for your answer. I just have one other quick one answer or question, that is. And where I stand on this is, I would personally favor number 3 more than any of them, and for the simple fact I don't know all the answers here, but going forward, I'm a little opposed to relinquishing any control or obligations of the city over to the county. I'd rather keep it our own house and our own site specific and not relinquish control for, it might not seem like much now, but in the future, 5, 10, 20 years from now, that might make a big difference. It would be my concern on that.
That's a really good point, and I appreciate that perspective. And I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner, and I apologize, but a light bulb just went off when you said that. There's a fourth option. Fourth option is we look to another town in Lincoln County. Reardon comes to mind, who's already done their critical area ordinance, who's already made it through 60-day review and came out the other side with a thumbs up. And we use theirs as a model, and we kind of changed some of the language to Harrington.
Okay.
And so it would be based on a small town, right? I mean, the thing about the counties is they're just, the geography of it is so different. If you adopt it by reference, it doesn't really matter. But if you try to use theirs to fit Harrington, it's hard because they're taking into consideration the geography of the entire county.
Right.
I'm going to pull up my spreadsheet here. I have a list of who in Lincoln County is done. I'm going to pull that up.
Jen, while you're looking that up, this is Councilman Armand, position 1. Is that subject to copyright or plagiarism by chance?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. There's no problem in doing it. It's something we actually recommend fairly often, and that's why I was apologizing why I didn't already consider that as option 4. Wilbur is done. Reardon is done. I know Reardon specifically worked with an attorney to consult with theirs. That makes me feel pretty good. That a lot of the state law requirements were considered. Odessa is done. Davenport is done. Creston adopted the counties by reference. Elmira's done.
Okay.
So we have options.
We have a good working relation with Reardon, too.
Okay. Well, thank you for pointing that out, Jan. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up because I think that is a very viable option. And that would be pretty fast.
This is
I mean,
Councilman,
I can help get that modified for the town, you know, within a couple of weeks.
Okay. I
one
think-
more question, go ahead,
No, I
Dave.
just say, you got another question. I yield. Go ahead, Mr. President.
Councilman Davenport, would it be our responsibility to approach those cities to request permission to use their data or get copies of it?
No, actually, no. I have every time a town submits their critical area ordinance for state review, it goes into the state database, which I have access to. They submit all of these things to Commerce, where I work. So they are considered a, public document at that point, and I have access to them, and we don't have to go to them for permission.
Could we get a copy of one of those? We reformat it, vote on it, and get the job done?
Yep, we definitely could.
That sounds good to us, to me anyway.
Yeah, I have just a couple questions. So first of all, once we pass this, are we bound for 8 years? Or is this something that we could change next year again if we wish to?
Yes, you could change it.
Okay.
You could change it at any point. You won't have to, from the state's perspective, for 8 years.
Okay.
And right now, we have funding. The state legislature doesn't always give us money to help jurisdictions get their updates done. But we just this last session, the budget is pretty flush, and we have funding. I won't have it until July. That's when the next biennial budget starts. So I can't help this go around, but it's possible in 8 years we will have funding, and you can hire a consultant and, start totally over and have it redrafted professionally.
Sure. My other question is, I'm assuming that the baseline that backs this whole effort is being compliant with the RCWs and WACs. So
Yes.
there are going to be things that every policy will have, or else it will not get passed. So to that end, when we talk about the variations of the counties versus each particular city, how large of scope of differences are there? Are we all just rewording the same basic concept because everyone's trying to be as minimal as possible to the WACs and the RCWs? Or is there material differences between these wordings?
Good question. For the most part, everybody has to meet the same requirements, like you said. We're all held responsible to the same WACs and RCWs. So that language is pretty much the same. All the definitions are the same. The state requires that you use the best available science to make your regulations to protect these environmentally sensitive lands. The Department of Ecology, the Department of Health, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, those are the agencies that produce the documents that are often used as the best available science. So most every jurisdiction is using that same guidance material. So the recommendations in the critical area ordinance are the same. How detailed you get, how thorough you are, if the town decides to go above and beyond what the state recommendations are, that can vary. But for the most part, it's pretty similar. A lot of it depends on the geography. If you have an aquifer, how many, water bodies you have in your town, that's where a lot of the variation comes from, just the geography and the ecology of the area alone. But the rules, they're pretty much boilerplate.
Okay. So basically, we're just talking of the only option that we have that will be accepted is what the state requires or beyond, as far as strictness.
Right.
Yeah.
We have some jurisdictions that decide to develop their own version of what they consider the best available science, and you can.
More money though, I guess.
But usually you hire a consultant. They develop a whole report based on
This is
the
what
ecology
most
of your
people do.
area.
They
It can be
hire-
very
They
expensive, but
hire a
you can
consultant who knows
use
how to
a
talk
different
what they want to hear.
reference material for determining your buffers around a wetland, for example. If you can point to science that you used outside of the state's guidance documents. Stevens County is doing that, for example.
Okay, thank you.
But it's, yeah.
I've got a couple more quick questions here. So you said Lincoln County's is kind of all over the place, but the Lincoln County's is approved, obviously. How old is their CAO?
It is 3 or 4 years old now.
So relatively current. And Reardon and Wilbur, were they more recent than that?
Yes, Reardon just did theirs last year. I worked with them on that one. Wilbur, they did theirs in, I think it was February of 21.
Okay. Approval you mentioned has to be by June 30th. Does that mean we have to have it submitted by April 30th, I think is what I was reading? So
Yes,
it has
that's
a 60
correct.
day. Okay, so it's not our June 30th date. Our date is April 30th. So,
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. We do have a flood zone as far as FEMA is concerned that runs alongside the town. How relevant is that to the CAO?
It's relevant. Floodplains are one of the critical areas, so there will be regulations in the critical area addressing, where development can occur within a certain proximity to a floodplain.
Okay. I didn't have a chance to do the research. Do you happen to know in this area when the last FEMA map update was?
Oh, I wish I knew that off the top of my head. It's pretty outdated,
Okay,
if I recall.
okay. Okay, fair enough. That's all I had.
Okay.
No more?
Any other questions? Is everybody? It's a lot to consider. It's a lot of pros and
David?
cons to weigh.
I don't think we have any more at the moment, Jen, but if we do, I know how to get hold of you.
Yep. Yeah.
After
Yeah.
I,
Whatever you guys decide, I'm here to help you. I do not want the town to be concerned that their grant is in jeopardy over this. We will not let that happen. So, just let me know, I guess, what you guys decide tonight, and we'll make a plan to get it done.
Thank you for your time, Jen, and your answers. Thank you.
thanks much. After I got off the phone with you this afternoon, I spent about another hour with Linda Weil.
Yes, she told me. I am so sorry, Mayor. That's just
That's,
much longer than it
What-
should ever take.
well, we're working towards the end goal, so I just wanted to let you know that we've got a couple more steps forward. We'll keep working this process till we get her.
Sounds good. If you guys need anything else during your meeting tonight, feel free to call.
Thanks much,
Thanks,
Jen.
Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
So now we've heard the info there. I think I would ask for a motion, anything, so we can bring it for discussion.
Do we need a motion to discuss it?
Well,
I think so.
I don't know what we would be motioning. There's no
No.
ordinance put before the council to vote on. I think
No.
what you're looking for would be a direction as to what ordinance to present to the council for a vote in the next meeting, I think. Otherwise, I don't know what the action of the motion would be.
I think I agree with you that. I'm just looking for more discussion from you gentlemen at this moment.
I'd recommend that the mayor contact the appropriate cities that have done these reports already and see if we can make this a short circuit, a lot of work.
So attempt to get somebody else's and adopt theirs or
Correct. I would agree
change
with,
it, yeah?
I would
My
agree with that.
recommendation would be to inquire of cities and ask them what they changed. And the first one that talks about that working towards defining their own definition of best available science, let's talk to them about using theirs.
Well, I know we have a good working relation with the city, 2 cities down, which would be Reardon. We have a good in with their city hall.
Can I just point out, she said you don't have to ask the city, she has copies of them.
That's
Yes.
true.
She'll do it. No, we don't have to ask the city.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a lot of options of what we can approve that will be accepted. It's not so much a question of finding one that will work. It's a question of what did they change and why did they go to the effort of not adopting the counties. And so what cities did which thing is what would matter to me, is what was the thing that they wanted to set apart in their document, and our desires for why we would want to set it apart from the county should match what that city was doing. Because it sounds like, as far as relinquishing control, what I heard in terms of changing it, we have the ability to scrap it and make a new one at any point in time should we want to fund the effort. So I did not hear that we would be bound by this.
I think we could change any of theirs
Right.
without any.
I'm just
It's
saying.
just gonna cost more money to go that
Sure.
route. You know,
I'm just saying, I think we wouldn't find, it does not sound like from what she said that we would find ourselves hamstringed by this document, because we
Right.
would have the ability to change it if we ever didn't like the decision we made here.
And to add to that, possibly Reardon, Wilbur, other cities towns have already spent
The
the
money.
bucks. So,
And the time.
So I think it behoove us to, either one, in my opinion, would work. Either town, option 4, she said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Does the
What
mayor,
t- go ahead.
does the mayor have any idea how long a document we're discussing here? How many pages?
The counties was 50.
50?
Yeah, our old one was 50. And it was actually 2005 when it was done. That's the one I gave you right here. This is the old document. The problem with this one right here is she said the state has changed so many things since this was
Since
produced.
2005?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
and 3. Yeah.
and they've actually changed the growth management and made it much more stringent. So this one is a long shot to start changing our original one.
Yeah.
The only thing that might help is the floodplain, if we looked at that,
I'll pull the map tomorrow.
yeah.
David, just to make sure I'm on the same page as you, the county plan, adopting it, resistance would be then the county could do whatever they wanted to do, and since we've adopted their plan, we have to go with whatever they go, even if
Yeah,
it's
basically.
detrimentally
I mean,
to
just,
us.
yeah, looking ahead in the future, I think we can handle our own, unless it was absolutely an emergency. I just think on the best interests of Harrington citizens and the city as a whole, that we kind of champion this ourselves. Even though we would be going plagiarizing or whatever you want to call it, copying, same
All
thing.
public.
It's all public, yeah, it's all public
Yeah.
record, so.
It sounds to her like it's okay,
Very much so,
yeah.
yeah, and it's already gone through some legal tests,
Right.
so. I'm inclined to go the easy route, which is just copy and adjust myself.
So I guess going forward here to answer Councilman Davenport's question maybe a little bit was, do we need to have or Jen Dial give us a couple examples of a template as such?
Absolutely.
Well,
I don't know if that really,
I mean, to me, the only important part of it is the definition of best available science, because it sounds like that's the only material thing that we will be allowed to change. So if someone else has just added additional strictness or reworded some things, I don't find that worth the effort. But if we change something, because the biggest thing that we can change, she listed, was the definition of best available science. I think that would be the thing to target.
Have we had any kind of an environmental engineer in this town in the past
No,
2 years?
not that I'm aware of, but those all sound good in my opinion, but also, I mean, the sky's the limit on this, really. I mean, if we wanna spend big bucks, we could have anybody from,
No, I don't think we should
Come
craft
in.
our own. I think we should adopt in other
Yeah.
towns.
right,
But I'm saying I'm not just interested in taking any other towns. I would want to take a towns that has had a particular focus.
so now, most recent, from the, like, within a year,
Yeah,
yeah.
I guess, how should I put
It
this?
has to pass the smell test with the
After
state.
2020, I have a feeling that Jay Inslee's definition of best available science and my definition of best available science might not be completely compatible.
I agree,
So that's why I'm focused on this particular point, because you can try and change the rules and requirements, but as she said, you might as well just decide to pass nothing, because you won't get the rules passed unless they meet the state's level. So trying to minimize that is a fool's errand. We might as well just say we won't pass anything. But the thing that we can change of material that she cited was definition of best available science. So to me, you pass the most minimal amount of rules that the law requires, and you change what you can change, and you move on.
Yeah, I would agree to all of this. I just want to remind people we have, I mean, she said 6 weeks. We don't have that,
we have the month of April,
basically.
well, or less.
Less
yeah.
than that, probably actually, to get it prepared and
And then the question becomes, do we want to have our final tweaked copy run past our attorney? But I suspect that would not, we don't have time. Just looking at the response time that we've already seen from city council, from city attorney council,
or is he the correct attorney to look at it?
probably not. And the other one's not probably going to be $190 an hour.
I think my number one question is how much time do the other 5 council here wanna spend working on this? I know I've been putting in close to 40 hours a week to try to get the last 3 pieces of the puzzle.
I guess I'm not quite understanding the question. Is anyone here on the council advocating that we craft our own? I'm not.
Negative.
So
No,
We
but I
don't
think we
know
have
how
to
much-
get reared ends, and we still have to, at a minimum, review it, change words, make sure
Sure.
it fits.
But wouldn't
Harrington.
this go like telling her this is what we're looking for amongst the local cities, her giving us the closest match, us reviewing it, and then voting it up or down? I don't see that as a large time sink.
you're not thinking we have to modify any of this as far as areas or?
I don't think we have time and or budget to do so. I think we choose from the best available options, and if we don't like what we did in a year, she said there might be funding to do something different. But I mean, it'd be one thing if we were bound for 8 years. I'd be a lot more particular because we have to live with our decision. But if at any point we don't, because she said also the funding's not available now, right? So it's like if we went into creating something custom now, we'd have to pay for it. If we do it later, she says we might not have to pay for it. Then again, we may, but we haven't cost ourselves anything. Right now, we need to get this out of the way so that we can get our grant and move on. So we pick from the best available options, knowing that we have the freedom to correct course if we made a mistake at any point.
I agree.
And who will make the alterations?
I think it'll be
She will.
with her,
Sure,
and,
with
yes.
her department.
Yes. And keep in mind, in 8 years, the state probably more likely will change some of their stuff as well. So
Absolutely.
I'd say we do the bare, the minimum here to get it passed through so we're not in violation of our ecology grant. And we move forward and don't even look back until 7 years from now.
Yeah. Once this gets approved, this is one of the last 2 issues to get our wastewater treatment plant.
Right.
What's the other one?
The other one is a,
Is it what it's on our The anti-displacement?
Well, the anti-displacement is not for the wastewater treatment plant, that's for the water plant. That's the next one on the list here.
I guess I don't understand Mr. Davenport's question.
Well, hey, there, as I told him, there was three pieces of the puzzle. The Growth Management Act, but getting in the Growth Management Act, there's two more pieces that
Critical-
satisfy that.
Critical area.
Yes, and this will satisfy the critical area. And the biggest problem was that was
Wetlands.
our,
Wetlands, critical area, which it all kind of
yeah.
culminates into one anyways.
That becomes your Growth Management
yeah.
Act, yes. And then the second one is for the other grant that we're getting for our water plan.
I believe so, I believe you're right.
So there's two different issues there.
I'll volunteer to proofread, change the name of the city to Harrington and look at it.
I get the impression she'll do that for us, is what I interpreted.
So I'll be on the phone to her
Yeah.
first thing in the morning and verify that
Okay.
they will make the corrections.
Cause
We just have to tell her what-
make 'em.
Right. Well, if
Okay.
you're
She's
modi-
not expecting to do our work for us.
No, but if we're adopting a document that has been already done for another city, we're not talking about asking her to make material changes. We're just talking about replacing
Reardon
Harrington
with
and
Harrington.
Right, pretty much.
Yes.
Maybe having to put
Yeah.
in something special because of the floodplain and
That's what I'm
then
guessing.
shipping it. So
Some of the other cities may have floodplains in them.
I was gonna say
We
Reardon
should-
does.
Wouldn't surprise me that Reardon does
If-
with
Yeah.
all the water off behind it there.
Yeah, if it's,
I
if it's got,
suspect that Reardon has a floodplain,
yeah, at least
Sprague has a floodplain,
Davenport
they're
definitely
right on
does.
the edge of a lake.
I didn't hear her mention, well, Sprague is not in this county? And that's
Yes, it
where-
is, Sprague is.
It's in Lincoln?
Yes, yes.
So let me rephrase, if she's not doing it, I'll volunteer to go through it, but would obviously expect everyone to pitch in as,
I suspect if we get an electronic copy from her, which is the only kind we'd get,
Yes,
we can do global amendments as required.
yes.
okay,
I mean, delete all Sprague and replace it with Harrington, then proofread.
I think we want to probably go with Reardon or Wilbur because those are the most recent.
The most recent, Reardon was the one that has
Yeah, but-
recently been attorney reviewed,
Yeah.
so,
1 year, I think she said.
yeah.
Wilbur was
This year.
February
It was
last year.
just-
Yeah.
Reardon was this year, Wilbur was last.
Yeah.
the
Right.
most recent may or may not be the one most ideologically compatible with what we're looking for.
So let's get them both.
Okay. Ask her for her list from 1 to 3. The ones they think are the most suitable for our situation.
I think she brought up those two because,
That's what she threw out there.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I think they were also most relevant to Harrington from what she obviously has to herd these through, so to speak.
Okay, well, watch your emails. I should have some news by tomorrow by noon, I'd say.
Good.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay. The next one is the Anti-Displacement and Reclamation Plan. I sent that to you, and if you remember, you guys, it had like 30 things that it was required underneath it. They actually went back and rewrote it, and it has approximately 4 now.
Is there
Two, this is it,
a
2
copy
pages.
of that in our
Yeah.
inbox?
Yes, you got that, well, 2 weeks ago, maybe?
Tuesday the 15th.
I got a one
And what is this
page.
for?
this is for the anti-displacement plan, and what that means, if we decide that we're going to build a new library, and in doing so, we have to knock down a couple of the houses in town, it's up to us to find the people that live in them a new place to live, and help them get there.
Financially.
Which is not what we're doing. In other words, this will never come into effect unless we institute something. And this is about our sewage disposal plant too. Our sewage disposal plant is not going to dislocate anybody, it's already there.
Unless we decide
Wastewater
to,
treatment
yeah.
plant.
Unless
Yeah,
we decide to move
excuse
it.
me, wastewater treatment plant, yeah.
And keep in mind, this
So
is,
why are we having to do this?
Because this is another thing that we have never filled one of these out and put it into place, and we can't go on with our HUD grant until we,
in accordance with
That's
the
my
housing.
question.
yeah,
It's for the-
It's in accordance
You
with the
wanna-
Housing and Community Development Act of 1974.
yeah.
So it's an old,
And we have never actually filled out one of these documents. But now we're getting a HUD grant, and HUD requires it in case you dislocate somebody during your project.
This looks an awful lot like the appropriate document. Can we vote on this?
this is a resolution.
This is a resolution, yeah, and that's what we put on the top there.
Sorry, Mark.
That's okay, no, that's all right. So if we vote on this, if we decide to adopt this resolution, then we will have an residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance ordinance in town. And like I say, the only way to make this thing come to life is if we decide we're going to tear somebody's house down.
Or apartment building.
Or apartments, yes.
And that has not ever happened.
Yeah, the problem was the state thought, their question to me was, do you people manage, own, or take care of any low-income apartments? No, we don't. And I tried to tell him, we're not that kind of a city. We've got only 400 people live in this town.
And,
You
and
know.
I will clarify even in here, it's, even so, it's only if it's a CDBG assisted project.
Yes,
That,
Community Development Block Grant, excuse me.
yeah, because we're using their money and HUD is involved in it, you have to have one of these on file. And once you have put this on file, it's there for life.
And I think that the block, it's Adams Street is part of that development grant.
Could be,
correct?
yeah.
That'd be like, if we were to displace a certain council member or others along there,
Yeah,
we would owe them a new house someplace else.
next to the sewage treatment.
I walked by your place today. That road might get fixed one day too. I move the adoption.
I'll second it.
okay.
So, gotta we have a motion from Stephen
Second by David.
to adopt, seconded by David, to adopt resolution 232-2022. And that is our anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
are we dealing with a 48-year-old provision?
No.
1974.
Well,
48
that's
years
when
ago.
this went in, yeah, with HUD. But in order to get any HUD money, which we are, they're paying us $24,000 for a water system study. They're covering all of the engineering, and this is one of the pieces of that puzzle that you have to have in place in order to get a grant.
To get the bucks.
Yes, and we have never as a city produced
That one
one of
right there.
these.
That's it.
Well, we're in. We're in.
And this one is a brand new one that they've made specially for us, because the one they had was for cities, and the man who produced it said, I guess you're not one of those kind of cities, are you? No, we're not. So it's been moved and seconded that we accept this resolution. Any further discussion?
I have none.
Question.
Question,
Is the
Peter?
resolution you have in your hand the same one that you put in the boxes? Has it been
Yes,
revised?
yes, you have a
Okay,
copy
I've
of
read
that.
it.
Yep.
Thank you. Call the question.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we accept this resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
I,
All opposed, say
That
the
was
same.
quick.
Thank you, council.
5-0.
5-0. That was wonderful.
check that box off.
That's all I can say.
Warm cockles in my heart.
Good. Amazing. Mr. Treasurer, do you have a report for us tonight?
No, that was an accident on his little
Okay,
total agenda.
Okay.
He apologized to me earlier tonight, that wasn't supposed to be on there.
okay. Well, we still appreciate you being here. We have a new public works person. I call him PW1. And that means nothing other than he's our first person, and that's Troy Crawford. Troy Crawford is here in his second week now.
You're more than
You've
just a
probably
number.
seen Troy driving around on the backhoe and our truck, so we now have a person who say hi to Troy and feel free to stop by and see our city shop. I think you'll be amazed that we could turn it into a lunchroom at the present time. I'm serious. Feel free to stop by and take a look. Our truck has been updated and cleaned. It no longer has tools bulging out of every opening on it.
So I would say this to the Public Works Department, that back when we last had a Public Works Department, one of the things that I was a proponent of was having a workshop session on a regular basis to give the Public Works employees an opportunity to show and tell to the council of the things that are most on their minds, so that we can understand the nature of things. So I get that you're still trying to figure out what the situation of Harrington is yourself. So when you are ready, I would be happy to be a proponent of that again, because I think there's a lot of things that the council still needs to understand about the nature of our status.
Well, open invitation, anytime you guys wanna come down, come on down.
You're the next contestant.
Okay. David, you had an issue or a item you wanted to talk about?
Yes. I just like to start out by saying thank you for bringing that to my attention, and I think fellow councilman members' attention. Just point out that the link that was on the email that the clerk sent out did not respond to the site. So I used another computer to go on site in the training. And I wanted to point out that this was about the Open Public Meeting Act and the Public Records Act. And I found them to be very informing, very enlightening. And however, I might add that a lot of the stuff that was covered is covered in the packets that the mayor issued to each council member earlier this year. And I want to say that it was very helpful, and I recommend my fellow council members to do that as soon as they can. And I printed the certificate, so I'll hand that to Jerry tonight. And thanks for the reminder of the mandate. As kudos. Thank you. And that's it.
So, I have one question for you. The people you talked to at AWC, do you have a list of their names? And the only reason I'd like, or who the person is, when I call that person, it's always good to say, yeah, this other gentleman called. Did you find them to be helpful?
I did, and I'll find that for you just a second. Here,
So just a quick
okay.
input there.
Yes, her name is Andrea Looper. I originally had Amber written down, and I'm glad I didn't pass that bogus information.
Okay.
I don't know how I got to Amber from Andrea, but anyhow, she is, I'm not sure her title over there. She's, like I said, I have it in an email I sent out to everybody and the mayor. And yes, she's very helpful. The information I was looking for was in regards to interviewing for for an elected position.
Correct.
And that has come up to the city of Harrington in the last 5 years quite regularly.
Yep.
4 years or whatever. And going forward, with all the recommendations, they recommend that council sets up a procedure for this. Even though there's no law, they do not have a law, but they do have recommendations for a process of doing this. But there are other laws and rules regarding elected positions and non-elected positions. And it's hard to distinguish between the two.
Excuse me a moment. Gentlemen, can you please not talk? We're trying to record the meeting, and it gets really jumbled when we have talking. So, one at a time.
All right.
Go ahead,
Thanks.
David.
Is that it's hard to distinguish between regular employees and then elected positions. There's rules for each one. I think going forward, I think my colleagues here, I think we'll come up with something, a guideline for the mayor and council and everybody to be in harmony and on the same page. I know that other cities and towns have stuff in place, and I think since it's been, Harrington has been blessed with this happening more regular than not, that I think it behooves us to adopt that, but obviously not tonight. But rather, that is the person I talked to, and the information I was seeking, I don't have the names of her colleagues that she referred to. She said she was gonna have to go to her supervisors, I believe, or other people, but that is the person. And for the record, it's the number that called was on the back of our council member handbooks.
I've
Yeah,
had emails with her in the past, so
Okay.
I've got her
right.
contact card here.
She's out of Olympia.
And you forwarded that email from her.
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah, and she's a RMSA membership coordinator, Association of Washington Cities, Olympia, Washington. And she has a number there. I don't know if anybody,
Yeah, it's on the,
okay,
RMSA.
on her header there at the end of the email.
yes. Is there any more questions? I don't know if we can discuss most of that at all right now, but that was the gist of it right there. And she was very, like I said, she's very helpful, and she extended the option to, to contact her anytime we have any questions, so she's open for any, don't hesitate to call her.
What's her last name again?
Looper, Luper. That's Andrea Looper.
Luper?
Yep, yes, sir.
Thank you.
In the past month here, I've been on the phone to state people many hours.
Mhm.
And I found every one of them will bend over backwards to help you. I think most of them are, although they work from home, they don't have enough work sometimes. So when you call, they're tickled pink to hear from somebody. And like I said, they've all just been over backwards. This young lady that talked to us tonight, I probably spent 5-6 hours on the phone with her and the rest of her colleagues. So,
I'd like to concur, add to that. Prior calls to the state or anything, you had to listen for an hour, couldn't get people, or listen to elevator music forever. This was right in, boom, they're there. So that was a pleasure, just to echo what the mayor has said.
the only one I've found that not to be true with, which I've got at least a dozen recorded dates that I've tried to call this week, is the auditor's office. On mic or not, if they're there, they never call you back, and if they do, it's to tell you that they're gone for the week and somebody else is gonna call you.
Well, just
And-
don't pay their bill.
And we're paying over $3,000 a month right now to the Washington State Department of Auditors. And that's a significant amount of cash, from my point of view. So I think we'll go to the mayor's comments right now. Public Works, we already talked to you about. Johnson Family Towing, I did not get to our attorneys this week. I've had issues there that were time related. And I'll try to get to that next week here, to get that letter off and see where we're going with that. If anybody knows what it takes for us to fill out to surplus some of the relics that are laying around our city shop, please bring those files out of whatever cardboard box there is, cause I got a firm quote or bid on the Huber tractor that when I questioned Scotty, that's the orange tractor down there with a grater blade underneath it. I said, you know, when was the last time you used that, Scotty? Scott, excuse me. And he said, oh, just a couple of years ago. So what year was that? Maybe 10 years ago, he said. It's only got 2 flat tires, the back ones work, and I see people shaking their heads it wasn't 10 years ago, huh? So at least a decade it's been sitting there. And next to it is another little trailer and another piece of equipment that's partially there that was some sort of a snake, power snake, which I don't think has moved either in decades. At any rate, I've got a firm bid from an individual in town for $750 for that tractor. And he can tow it away from my point of view if he can get it out of the mud. But
We
I
have to
haven't been,
advertise it first as surplus property?
yeah, we have to do that, and I believe there's probably some resolutions, something. And as many people have come in and said, well, it's in a box downstairs.
Well, we'd have to, the council, the city would have to, just from memory serves me correctly, there was some ordinance resolution, there was some paperwork that ran across in the box
Okay.
dealing with it, but it actually had physical land, and they were talking about it, and the city declares it as surplus for one.
Yeah.
And this is where the former mayor, he was supposed to look into it. I don't know if he ever received an answer from an attorney, but how to set that up and do it. And it suggested maybe we copy down some information from City of Davenport, Town of Davenport, City of Davenport, excuse me, of how to do that, because they had just recently done some of that. I know fire districts are doing it quite regularly, and I think that would,
School district.
school,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Wayne Massey up at the school.
So,
Knows how to get around that or to get through that?
We've surplused a lot of stuff at the school.
Okay.
Okay.
And who's that?
Superintendent Massey?
Okay.
Wayne
So-
Massey, right? Yeah.
So there's several pieces of old equipment there, bits and pieces. That it would be my goal to clean up that place and recoup all of the space around it, all of the land. Anything that doesn't run and we haven't used for a decade, we could probably get rid of it. There's a motor gasoline engine, flathead 4 driven welder that's taken up a space, one of those bays. And I know we were talking about building a new building at the cemetery. We've got at least 4 bays over there that we could, if we cleaned them out, where you could store all the picnic tables. This is not in the main building, this is the one that's along Main Street there,
The old firehouse.
okay?
Yeah, it's old fire station. Just, when you mentioned, flathead Ford and a welder,
It's a 4, excuse me, it's a flathead engine.
okay.
4-cylinder.
Four-cylinder, okay, maybe check with Scotty, but I believe that might be our pipe thawer.
Could be, it's a welder,
Yeah,
a DC welder.
yeah, it's a dilapidated, it looks like it's being a Smithsonian,
The fan sticks out one side of the frame, it's on a trailer.
yes.
I'm sure if anybody from the state caught you running that thing with people around it, they would,
But I know that they had used it here a couple years ago, actually up by your house in that intersection up there. But
you're not using one of Scotty's couple years now, are you?
No.
No.
It's maybe 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen it for a long time, but
So I would love anybody to come down and put some eyes on this stuff and, you know, some extra voices to say, oh, that's the best thing we ever had, don't get rid of that. Okay. But there's a lot of floor space down there that I think we could use for much better than storing antique equipment that has virtually no value.
And pallets of 80-pound blocks of concrete.
Yeah, there's
Rubble, rubbish.
You're what?
I said there was a pallet down there of quickcrete that probably hasn't moved and has turned into solid 80-pound
Yeah.
blocks of
Yeah, it
Probably
does.
rocks by now.
yes.
exactly.
Fishing anchor, boat anchors.
Just peel the paper off.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and that's down at the
At-
city garage shop.
And
down there.
around
And
the,
people said we don't have
all around it,
sidewalks,
if you
yeah.
walk around it, there's another tractor back there. I'm trying to get people's input to find out if any of this equipment has real value. And if it does, if we don't use it, maybe we can turn it into cash.
As far as scrap metal, I know scrap metal's up, but I don't know if we can,
Cash for clunkers.
yeah,
We got a couple of those.
but,
Maybe that's coming out next week. You never know.
So we need to come up with a surplus plan is the first thing. And then identify.
identify and then come up, declare it as surplus, yes, you're right.
Yeah. Some of those, I don't think they're surplus. There's parts and pieces of old machines and just parts of them that we could get rid of for scrap.
And now that orange tractor you're talking, is that the finish grader? Was it finish
Yes, well, it's what I would call a small grader.
grader?
Yes, the
I don't
blade
thi-
underneath, just like a grader.
I don't know what years, but I haven't seen that run since I was in grade school. That's over 45 years ago.
So if you could get me if you see a serial number on that thing,
I can't hear you, what's that?
if you could see if there's a serial number on that, that's one of the first things we
On the
need.
tractor?
Yeah, the Huber,
Yes,
the old grader.
okay.
Because we're gonna need serial numbers, and maybe those other pieces of equipment, the same thing,
I
that,
know there's the old plow truck out back with the plow attached, there's another plow that's
Yep.
not attached to anything, there's a old motor or mower with no motor,
yes,
mower decks, about probably 4 of them,
yes.
all sorts of stuff laying out there. But I will get the serial
So-
numbers and get them to you.
Do we have an equipment list? I know we have a pretty much new regime here, but any type of list, records, titles, certificate of origin, anything of that secret file, no?
We did have that list that just came out for the insurance.
Yeah,
And
that's,
that covers vehicles.
Yeah, we got a couple other
Yeah,
trucks
but-
down at the wastewater treatment plant.
that's not getting down to the level at which we're looking to surplus.
I think we're looking for ownership, like titles.
That, all the above, and then that could give us a start too, cause work in progress then.
Yeah.
So we're working on cleaning that place up. It's time to come into this century here with that building. We bought some tools this week to replace some of the tools that there was nothing, because he has to have tools to work with.
Hey
What do
guys,
you buy?
I hate to interrupt. I have to go for a second. I'll call you back in about 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Quick adjourn while he's gone.
I
Okay,
think
good,
I've
yeah.
given you my update there. Is there any public comments?
Oh, boy.
Oh, yes.
2 weeks ago, I handed out a report of the research I had done regarding the cemetery and the cemetery endowment fund. There were a couple of minor errors on that evening I was able to find the material I needed to make corrections. So I have made corrections to that report. I brought new reports that don't have the long paper sticking out the bottom. I gave one of these to Mike before the meeting so that he would have it to look at. And I brought reports for each of you.
Thank you.
And this will replace the one I handed out 2 weeks ago.
Gotcha.
You know, Stan, I had information on page 3, I think, here,
Okay, thank you.
and it was on ordinance 389.
386?
86, yeah, and the only problem now is
Do you have a new current one?
whatever it was that my question was, I didn't write notes, and I've been kinda under the gun here lately.
It was on, there was a question on 386.
I had one, and I'll be darned now if I can remember what it was. It was 10-year
Well,
CD,
The error
CDs.
that I corrected after 2 weeks ago was on the date of ordinance 314.
From 88 to 89, is that it?
Yeah, 88 to 89 on the first page.
The only way that I could get this material into a sequence that made sense and connected was to conclude that the date that was typed on at the end of ordinance 314 should have been 1989, because that ordinance was not recorded in any of the council meetings prior to the meeting January 11th of 1989, where that ordinance was approved. Before that, the minutes showed that it was being considered, it was being discussed for several meetings. There was some side meetings of a committee that was put together to create that ordinance. But the actual passage puts this ordinance with the minutes for January 11th, 1989. And in the minutes binders that are here in the cabinet in the office, 314 was actually in there filed with the January 11th, 1989 council minutes. And it was in correct sequence of ordinance number, and once I got that fixed, everything else fit. So that was a correction, and then on the first page, I moved a couple of the sequence items that were under 1988. I moved them down to January 11th of 1989. And now it all makes sense and it ties together and the sequence appears to be correct.
So Stan, this looks like something you typed up on the computer. Could I trouble you to send this as an attachment to the council?
Rather than paper copies?
I would appreciate it personally, and if you've already got it typed, I wouldn't ask you to go to any trouble, but if you happen to have the file, I'd appreciate it.
I can send that to you as 3 separate attachments on an
Okay.
email.
So just send it to council@harrington.city, and then we'll all receive it. That way I have it with me in every council endeavor.
Mr. Non-Paper. I'm all about saving trees, so.
Know thyself.
I can do that.
Thank you.
I have to plead guilty to being old-fashioned. I'm sorry.
No,
It's fine.
Thank you for your willingness to do that.
Question, if I may. Did you retype the entire ordinance number 314? No, that's a photocopy of the one out of the minutes binder. Reformatted to
No.
by 11. Not of 314. Of 314 is original. The
386.
next one, 386, was on the long paper that was on the previous package I passed out. And that one I was able to shrink enough to get it to fit on 3 sheets of 8.5 by 11 rather than the 8.5 by 14. It's just a paper thing with me.
So that's the actual photocopy, it's just
Thank you, Sam.
shrunk to fit.
There, yeah, both of those ordinances are photocopies of what is in the official minutes books for the city. The only thing I typed was the stuff up front that's leading that into those 2 ordinances.
I'm gonna miss this big long one, Stan. That's how I knew what it was.
Makes it
I get a lot of paperwork in that one.
I hear you.
You'll get one via email.
Okay. Did you have something, Tim?
Yes, I do. I'm more here with my friend Dave for his concerns, but I do have a small issue for comment to make about, can we have a campfire or a burning fire in town right now?
You can.
Okay, is that
You
posted
can
anywhere?
on
Is that
Friday,
posted anywhere for the residents to see, or?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can now burn for the rest of this month
Okay,
and for next month, for April.
okay, now where is that posted so that? the
Well,
public
it'll
can
it'll
see?
probably be, if it's not up this afternoon.
Post office.
Did it?
It's going to be posted on that window. It is right now. It will be posted on the bulletin boards in town, and it will be posted on Facebook.
It's on Facebook already.
It all went out this afternoon.
Cool. Out
Just
there.
for you.
Okay, now
Is
my
that,
friend
is that
Dave.
yard waste, or are you just talking,
Yard
You
waste.
can burn yard waste, yes.
I just didn't wanna, I mean, I heard the word campfire or whatever, I wanna be clear that that's about burning yard waste.
The dump is closed, our burn site,
Good.
Oh,
for a week because it was burned 2 nights ago.
Yeah. last
And it could be a couple, 3 feet deep of hot spots in there, depending on how long that burns. We'll give an update here in a week on that.
Do we know who ignited it?
The fire department, fire chief.
Kids, rowdy kids.
Yeah.
I would have liked if that had been announced in advance, because I walked out on my deck and went, oh my God, somebody's house is on fire.
I couldn't agree with you more. That was my thought when I heard, and
I smelled it and you were like, that's a house fire. Something is going on.
so there's one thing I forgot in the mayor's update. One thing we've had a lot of problem with in the last, I don't know, few months here for sure, is noise in the city hall during the working hours that it's open as a city hall. Not only from kids, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the library gets 3 or 4 people in here. And the acoustics are not so good in this place, and it gets so loud that you can't even talk on the phone. So a building has come for rent in the city, which is an office building. It has 5 very large offices that are all glass windows. It has a safe. It has a conference room that could be used as the city council. It's in the process of being refurbished as being rented, after being rented for, I'm not sure, an undetermined amount of time. The price for this building is $1,000 a month. The landlord would like to have a 3 to 5 year lease. He would like to have first and last and a deposit for the building. And some of these things he thinks are unnegotiable, but I think everything's negotiable. And if anybody would like to take a look at it, that's virtually the same price. There's only one fee other than the cost of the rent, and that would be a Vista. It is an air-conditioned and heated building, and after being downstairs here for several times, I would call it a modern building. So, anybody interested in taking a look at that? That would be a good straight across swap for our money that we're receiving for our rental across the road over here. And give us a place to have all of this permanently set up. We could have chairs set up for the council. There's offices there that could be used for other groups. And I hate to,
Did he say he was gonna lock in? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's
He
okay.
wanted to lock in for 5 years?
he said 3 to 5
3
years.
to 5. Okay.
I can see 3. I don't know if we'd want to be locked in for 5, but I don't know. It was my,
With no rate increases, where I was gonna
well,
go with that.
no, he was talking about some rate increases, and for a percentage rate, I thought he'd been talking to our lawn mowing company. And so,
Oh, shoot. Okay.
so those things have not been hammered out, but I think, like I said, everything is negotiable. The landlord's thinking is that in this time when there's not very many rentals, you can ask whatever you want. And I think the rent to the city for a 3-year period, I don't know how you could do any better than that. That's about as good a gamble as you could have.
The overhead just come to mind like a typical rent lease. Water, sewer, and garbage, we know the owner, right?
Right, right. Yeah, he already mentioned that he paid that.
Okay.
It's going to have all new carpets in it. All the rooms will be painted. I asked him about the lights, and he said all the lights will be working, and
LED. He's putting in LED lights.
was he? Okay. He said after, if you sign the lease and you take it over that for the next 3 years, you're in charge of keeping the lights, bulbs in it. And I think
Standard kind of.
that might be okay. I told him, if the water tank goes out, we're not fixing your water tank or toilets or those things. As a landlord, you got to take care of your piece of property. But at any rate, everything could be written into a contract.
Is the building up for sale?
No, I don't. Well, I don't know. Everything's for sale, Peter. You know that. But I
Yeah.
have a suspicion no.
Does the present city hall cost us anything other than utilities?
Well,
We pay for a Vista here,
yeah.
Vista?
yeah, and we pay for CenturyLink. Yeah,
We'd have to pay a Vista over at the others.
yep,
So essentially, you're proposing an additional $12,000 a year to our budget just to move City Hall.
no, it's a
Well,
wash. We bring in 12,000 in lease,
yeah.
and we pay out 12,000 in lease. So it's a zero,
Zero-sum game.
yeah,
Yeah. If we take the rent money from our rental, that would become a wash.
Well, that doesn't seem legitimate. Are you talking about the rental to Johnson Family Towing?
Correct.
Or whoever would want to rent that.
Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily a wash.
So, having reviewed today the stipulations that the state puts on what we can and cannot discuss in executive session, David's recommendation, page 25, properties to be leased is specifically one of the things that we can address in executive session. When there is the potential that the discussion would have an impact upon the price at which we would lease. I would advise the council that we should not have further discussion about the finances of this move in public session.
That sounds fine to me.
Thank you for pointing that out, Stephen.
Yeah.
I agree.
So that's food for thought.
Do you have a time scheduled to review the property?
Well, I think we get in the property any time, but I know he talked a week ago that we had 3 weeks to make a decision before he started thinking about renting it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this man needs to talk.
Okay, you've got the floor.
Okay. I have a neighbor who's got 11 junk cars parked in his yard, on the streets, and other people's yards. 75% of them I know don't run. And he's got 4 of them out on the main street, he's got one in another guy's yard, he's got one parked almost in the other neighbor's yard. Is there anything you guys can do to get rid of them cars? Cause none of them run except, he has hoods up on them all the time, I don't know. He just, I don't know what to do. I've been trying to be nice to him and stuff, but you open up a window or window seat and there's a doggone junk car right there. It's getting ridiculous. I'm just trying to find out if you guys can do something to help out. We used to have an ordinance when I got here in 2006. Bunny, she says you're allowed 2 lots on the street. Okay, I got 2 lots, 2 of those little spaces. I only use one, I put the pickup in the back. Sometimes he's got 8, 9 cars out in the front, and it's just not right. It looks right across from the school. It's just not right. And his house is, never mind, it's just a junkyard. And it's hard to look at. And I can't sell it. I've had 2 realtors come in, and that's gonna take my value down because I got a junkyard next door to my house.
Is there any, I believe I know the house.
Yeah.
I don't know the individual, but is there any way we could, because it's not only in the front, it's also in the alley. The house is pretty bad.
Yeah, house got a roof, it got a hole in the roof.
Yeah, part of the roof is missing. I mean, you can see where wood, there's no shingles, no anything. Is there any way we can help them out or suggest that, hey, you know, we can get rid of these vehicles for you if you cannot do it?
I can add to that, there is Good Guys Towing that'll come and get them for free, the vehicles.
Sorry, I'm hard of hearing.
Good Guys Towing out of Spokane, I believe, will come and get them for free. They do the town of Reardon's
Okay.
removal for in the fashion that, in that pretense that people want to get rid of them but don't know how. They don't impound them, they just will pick them up for free,
Right.
if that's the case. But
Yeah,
there
it's-
are ordinances right now that are on the books to address this. And there's some amending to the ordinances that I'm having a heck of a time with the attorney. He loses the files, didn't have the files, so I'm gonna be going over there personally, giving him the files.
Are they related?
Don't
No.
know.
No.
And to deal with the teeth to the ordinance. But that we do have 2, one in particular that is active and still in force. We just don't have a viable.
Officer?
No
Yeah,
court
yeah,
enforcement officer.
And to address the home, I do recall seeing some information in the files regarding dilapidated, but what would descriptive of that home. I know which one you're talking about, and we do have some stuff that does address that. I don't have that off the top of my head. Somebody had to go look at it.
Well,
Again,
I
there
mean,
is-
if we can get some volunteers to throw some shingles on the roof, whatever we need to do, and then
And to
that
answer
trade-off.
Dave's question too, there is an ordinance in there regarding or referencing parking of vehicles and spaces, parking spaces, correct? Yeah,
Yeah.
we do have that. But we're in the process of going through and organizing all these.
Okay.
So we ask your patience, but we have not forgotten the citizens of the town or the city.
Right.
3 of those cars in particular, he belongs to a guy that don't even live here.
Okay?
He's in Spokane, and he comes maybe Saturday, and that's it. But he's supposed to be a mechanic, he's not a mechanic, he works at Spalding in Spokane, and that's where the cars come from. He's got a junk car right now, and it's rusty, it's a bucket of boats, I don't know why he's got it. He's got one parked in Brad Simpson's yard, it's ridiculous.
And there are auto parts laying around the cars.
Are all of the jacks still sitting out there in the front yard?
Oh, gee.
And well, they had a couple jacks out there last
Oh, he
week.
still got them out there, yeah.
I got
He's
pictures of the
extension
place.
cords going to some of the cars. One of the cars out front don't have an engine or it doesn't run, so I don't know. And the hoods are always up on the other 2, so I don't know. It's just ridiculous to look at.
It would be my recommendation probably for the mayor, the clerk of the city, in this instance, to send him a letter, or the people, him or her, a letter to address, tell them that these have to be removed as a starter. We don't really, I don't think we need a code enforcement officer in place right now. I think the city as a whole embodiment can send a compliance letter.
It's
I
462.
talked to the individual personally twice and told him he needed
Well,
to move them on.
has any traceable correspondence, like notice has been given.
Yeah, they gotta be
for,
certified
step by
letters.
step, yeah.
I'll send him out one.
Okay.
I think we can probably print out the ones that we used in the past and do that as a start so that we've got some documentation.
And
Even ahead of that's 462. I've
Yes.
got them.
462 and then 389
9. Yeah.
for a bunch of stuff too, so both of them.
Okay.
Go ahead. Did you want to add to that, Stephen?
you covered it, and then I said it would have to be applicable to what's currently on the books.
Yeah.
There's a couple other houses have similar. I mean, you go to the first house when you come in town, and there's a truck there that has no motor, no hood, nothing. So,
Question.
that one is probably one of the worst, but it's not the only one in this town,
Yeah, but he's probably got the worst one.
you know?
Weren't we at some point, gonna hire a compliance officer for this town?
Well, we were gonna try and do that again
Or
as
a
soon as
volunteer man,
David's
or-
been putting in a lot of hours on this one with our attorney and has rewritten and typed the ordinance and blended per the attorney a couple of ordinances from the past together. And we would take some of the old ones off the books with a brand new one. And that's been a struggle. We're working in a time right now when nothing seems to work as it used to work, even when you're paying people.
Amen.
I will volunteer if you need a volunteer to do this.
But that was a great idea to see if there was anybody that could help too.
Yeah, I'll check around.
You know, sometimes we get thinking of
Get a trade-off.
throwing
So in the
people
good
over
old
and
days,
maybe we could help
simply
them.
Call up the authorities and have the tow truck show up and get her out of there. But
Well, that might be an option right now. I don't know, is contacting, give them the notice to comply, they don't.
Right.
And then we may, in the interim here, get a hold of Lincoln County Sheriff's deputies and kind of strong arm them
Well-
or persuade them.
You've got to follow the ordinance.
Yeah, that's what it is.
The council worked very, very hard 15 years ago to put that thing together when we had the messes then. You've got to follow the ordinance.
You're 100%
what
correct.
happened to the ordinance?
I want to address that because that is true.
It's still there, it's still on the books.
That
It's
it,
still on the book, so it needs to be
it is
fortified.
for the most part, but
Fortified.
as I'm finding out, like we found out with Jen Dial here, and the state, in their infamous glorious ways, like to change stuff on a guy. So rules of engagement and what our ordinance, when it did, well, good examples. There's a section about impoundment and stuff. That has changed at least twice. I mean, that has really changed in the last few years of who can do it and the hoops and stuff to jump through. So, yes, and that's part of the hard work that the prior council, mayor put into this was great, but for some reason it didn't go far enough as far as the penalty phase. And I think what's currently, I just tip my hat here and tell everybody, it's gonna be public record anyways. The fines and the schedule that's laid out, it's basically plagiarized from Wilbur's, the town of Wilbur's, since the court recognizes them, their ordinance in the county is one of the best recognizable and enforceable. Our fines are lower than theirs, what's proposed from us. There are some fines that get pretty costly, but I think we're in the ballpark vicinity at the lower spectrum of that. And our main goal for people is we're not in the business of going out, hiding in the bush and slapping tickets on everybody. We want compliance. But when those scofflaws that don't want to comply for the citizens and the betterment of the community, then we have an option to fine them and go to the court, turn it over to the district court is what's gonna happen. And then they have to stand before the judge over there and they'll hand out their just
Okay,
desert.
well, why can't this all be put together and come to fruition?
Okay, I don't know if you've been to how many meetings before, but this is about work that's been going on since last summer. And as per attorney, our city attorney currently, and correspondence, let's say that I've been sending the stuff and he's somehow didn't get it or get parts of it and had other ideas. So today, he called me back and I'm physically gonna go to Wilbur and sit down with him and tell him exactly, show him what we want or what was supposed to be done. And from the get-go, the ordinance is the only thing that was changed was a fee schedule in them. Keep that in mind. I didn't change, it wasn't the city's goal to rewrite them. I mean, they were still good, but it was to add the teeth. I keep hearing, you know, the clause to the ordinance. Most people, as I understand, have complied. And there are some folks that didn't know how to get rid of their stuff. Well, find out, you know, Good Guys Towing was referred to me as they'll come down and pick them up for free. You don't have to do nothing. Just point where it is and they'll take them. So it is a work in progress, Mr. Campaw, and to everybody. It has not been forgotten. It's just the wheels of justice or progression here is moving kind of slowly. We've been challenged in the last 3 years with COVID, pandemic, and all, whatever other excuse you can come up with. And it's not always been the easiest to get commerce booted in the hind end and going. You know, it's so we are working on it. I can assure you that. I am. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that, Mr. Bud.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Is there any sort of ordinance about containing your dogs and picking up after their waste?
Oh, yes,
Yes.
of course.
I bought game cameras to put on my yard because somebody's dog poops in my front yard every day.
I think I've seen this on people's court.
Big dog or a little dog?
Big.
Oh.
And not my dog, because she's got a fenced area in the back where I already take care of it.
I'm aware of a dog ordinance, but I'm not sure about the other
The
part of it.
defecating on a
Well, the problem with
dog
that is it's a health
Containment
problem.
is a part
Sure
of
it
that
is.
ordinance.
And
Okay.
And let me tell you, the game cameras on my, because I'm right over there, I had 13,000 pictures of semi-trucks going by and I had to delete.
13,000?
It
That's
was
true?
like 3 days of it. It was just because it take a picture of everything that goes by, person, car, anything.
We need
So
to
the
put a
next
radar
time we
gun
have
attached
a
to your.
damage to a light pole.
Did you ever find the dog?
Not yet.
No dog, just a lot of trucks,
I
huh?
have to download the pictures again to see what.
So I guess what your question is, and to answer it, yes, we do, but I don't have the answer how to enforce. Usually that was left up to code enforcement. A long time ago, it was city maintenance people that used to be the glorified dog chasers
Yeah.
and deal with it. That is something for more discussion
At
going
this point, I still
forward.
have to identify whose dog,
Right.
what dog it is.
Some of that might be a civil action and you may get, I don't know what the ordinance says, so I can't guide you which way, but it can lead up to you calling the sheriff's department over there and may not. It could go either way.
I don't think that,
No.
as far as I'm aware, part of the negotiation that we had with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office is that we got some degree of discount from our normal price under the condition that we would take ordinance enforcement upon ourselves.
I stand corrected
And
there.
so, therefore, when it comes to the vehicle ordinance or the dog ordinance, it would be inappropriate for us to reach out to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office, given that we are getting compensation for, expressly for the purpose of taking on that enforcement ourselves.
If, however, the current state laws dictate that we have to go that way, I would say. Thank you, well put.
Do you
Is there
remember when that took place? I don't happen to remember what you just said. That we are not to use Lincoln County Sheriff's Office
For local enforcement
local
actions?
enforcement.
Nuisance calls, I believe.
Nuisance calls, yeah. That would not be the same as like speeding or it's part of the contract we have with them for them servicing the city. It was before my time that was negotiated. I believe that happened first under Dillon's administration.
That we'd receive a reduction if we would handle that.
If I remember correctly, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office came out with a large increase, and that was a part of the negotiation. I think Councilman Slack was on that negotiation as well as the councilman at that point in time.
So to get to the bottom
Thanks
of
for
it,
that clarification. I'd forgotten that.
That was back when I was on the council.
Is,
Yeah.
And the sheriff came directly and said, no, we will not come in and do your local ordinances.
okay,
so with regards to those ordinances and all these like code numbers you guys are reading off, is there a place where those are published and can be reviewed?
Are they
I
on
would
the
love that, because
website
when I
yet?
moved in and wanted to put up a gate, I called and asked, a fence, and I asked, is there a law, how tall of a fence can I put in? And it was, Cynthia, she's like, I don't know, let me find out, because she didn't know either, so she had to go get somebody else to say, it could be 6 feet in the back and 4 feet in the front. So, if I just had a place where I could look that stuff up, I wouldn't call and pester people at the office to find out random questions.
I think Mr. Cronrath, he was here. Are you familiar with the ordinance at all?
I'm familiar with a lot of ordinances.
The dog ordinance, the remedy for that. She's looking for a remedy here.
I
I
may-
actually, at
I
this
may
point,
have
just learned
that
all the
still.
ordinances, cause I like to read things and know things.
But I don't think there was
Most
anything
likely
about
there's a box.
the particular
That's
problem.
what I was gathering from the
There
conversation.
was more about biting dogs
how do you
and
feel about scanning?
problems with vicious dogs.
I
Why-
have no
It
problems with
wasn't an
scanning.
issue of where they went.
There
I
is
don't
a
think it
fine
addressed
schedule.
that.
Well, I do know
I
that,
may have it
Dog
still.
violations.
yes, they're about early 80s, I do from memory. There was something come out about dogs, and they get fined. Dogs at large was like, at that time, $25 fine for letting your dog run loose.
And like on the Harrington website,
So that-
there's a thing about dogs at large and licensing your dog, but there's nothing about animal waste.
Yes,
It's in the,
Well, that would be an animal at large too, if it's on your property.
Unless it's somebody walking by with a leashed dog, and that's part of the reason I got cameras, so I can figure out if it's somebody just not picking up
you
after
need to
your
have the
dog.
cameras pointing
I have
towards
2
your
of them.
house.
They're aimed this way off my porch, so I
Yeah.
can see coming and going.
We'll look into that for you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
any more business?
I don't
Is
think
Levi
so.
back with us again?
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Did you have more, David?
No, I just think the discussion of the building and the executive session, we do not want to do that tonight, executive, correct?
I don't know that we can tonight.
I don't know that we have the necessary
Information,
information to
Right.
debate it yet. but-
okay. Okay, I'm good. No more comments?
I'd like to tour the building when you go in next time.
Okay,
Let us know.
Tour, oh, yeah, I got you.
anybody else interested in seeing it?
Okay.
I would like to.
I'd be
Okay,
interested in another time.
I'll see what I can put together.
When are you gonna do it?
I'll have to,
Arrange that with the owners.
with the owner, yes.
Okay.
Next week, one day? I don't know.
I'm in town.
You're in town. Thursday would be a good day for you, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Morning
Any
perchance,
partic- Any particular time?
No, they're all bad.
High noon, right?
Before you go.
Before noon is best for me.
Okay,
Mornings would be great for me as well.
Okay,
So let's call the question on adjournment then.
Oh, I think we need a second.
You still need a second.
yes, you will. Here's the Robert's minutes on calling them
You need,
question.
after the call of question, you'll need a second to second that call to question.
Right.
I don't think
That
we
make sense?
seconded the motion to adjourn, though.
Right.
Well,
But there was a
it's
call
Do
to
we have a
question.
second?
I'll second.
Here we go.
Have we voted on it?
No. All in favor of the amendment to, or the
Motion.
motion to adjourn the meeting?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Meeting's adjourned at 8:35.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good night,
Good night.
Levi.
Levi.
now the official part's over, we can talk.
I apologize, Ms. Foreman, right,
Yes.
Kelly? That, I didn't have a better answer for you.
That's fine. I just wanna get that question out there and